Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Oh man, crazy weekend up here in the DMV. Tackle Warehouse Invitationals wrapped up. Then we had the Abu Garcia college fishing event on Sunday. Friggin' Potomac River got pounded. But, okay. Have you ever been in one of those situations where you watch an interview and you already know what the response is going to be? Like it's almost transparent to you that you already know what's going to be coming. This is what happened to me. Because I had a buddy of mine send me the Bass Talk Live link on YouTube of the interview with Chase Anderson of Anderson Media Company. You guys are familiar with Anderson Media Company? Many of you guys are not. You guys are more familiar with Bassmaster or B.A.S.S. Well, back in 2017, around October, it was in the fall. I think it was October 2017. Anderson Media increased their stake and became the majority owner of Bassmaster. Okay? And so you have to put into context the timing of that and then what has happened since. Okay? And I'm going to just throw some things out there today for you guys to consume and to kind of just wrap your head around of reality. Okay? You guys know what I'm talking about. Chase Anderson went on Bass Talk Live, which is a great podcast, by the way, if you're not following that on YouTube, and talked about the trajectory, the vision that they still have for Bassmaster in the future. And of course, you're not going to get around the opportunity to talk about forward-facing sonar, right? It has been a dominant talk, within the fishing community for years now. So this notion that Chase Anderson only wanted to talk about forward-facing sonar is complete fabrication, okay? And what I'm talking about is what we knew was going to come, which was Randy Blaukat, again, sitting in his chair, at home, okay, was going to freaking have a rebuttal. And it's as predictable as the progressive left in politics in America. It is as predictable. It just is now. And that's why I've said for years it's not genuine, it's not sincere. This is Randy's retirement. YouTube is Randy's fishing retirement account as monetization. That's what I look at it. He just got done fishing freaking Lake of the Ozarks. I think it was a BFL event. I think he got like 10 pounds and didn't make the cut. And again, if you go back and you look at the recap of that event, forward-facing sonar was not a predominant player on Lake of the Ozarks for the BFL event. Okay, so I get confused sometimes when Randy fishing BFLs, like a lot of people I know here do. Okay, so he's no different now than anyone else fishing the BFLs. Okay, doesn't matter if he fished Bassmaster or doesn't matter what he did. And that's the thing that people don't understand is we're constantly trying to go back in time and make things like they were. Well, if things were that great back in time, they never would have changed. Okay? And what Randy never tells and won't admit publicly is that forward-facing sonar saved bass fishing. Forward-facing sonar saved bass fishing tournaments. Let me say that again. Okay, you have to remember Anderson Media bought Bassmaster in 2017. The first real season was 2018. Okay, so they basically had 2 years under their belt, and then what happened? COVID hit. Okay, what happened to the events? What happened to all the money? What happened to everything? Bass fishing is still trying to recover from COVID. Okay? No one wants to talk about it. Okay? But that's the truth. If you look at sales for every segment of the market, okay, sales were down and have gone down and have gone down. What has kept the industry in bass fishing tournaments afloat? The technology companies for forward-facing sonar that Randy Blaukat continues to bash. and continues to make statements that Bassmaster is, or insinuating that Bassmaster is doing all what the technology companies wanted to do. Well, Randy needs to inform his audience that without the technology companies and the amount of revenue that they have generated in the last 7 years, if you go back, some of these are public companies. If you go back and you look at their sales numbers for the last 3 years, people are buying their technology in droves, okay? People are putting that technology on their boats in droves. Look at the sales figures for Garmin, okay? So the more money that they generate in sales, the more money they have for marketing and for sponsorships. What Randy doesn't seem to understand is if all of a sudden you lost Garmin, you lost the ranch, you lost all the technology companies, okay? This is all happening in a time when anglers don't want to pay entry fees. Remember that push? Okay, remember the whole push for anglers not to have to pay entry fees in these professional bass fishing events. Well, if you don't have anglers paying entry fees, okay, and you don't have major corporate sponsorship deals post-COVID, minus the technology companies, okay, how do you sustain Bassmaster? How do you sustain the MLF? How many changes have the MLF made because of... Now, I want to reiterate this to everybody. It's easy for me and easy for other people to kind of make assumptions about things because these are not public companies, okay? So we don't really know, and Randy doesn't really know. Regardless of what Randy wants to project, Randy always falls back on the old Bassmaster, the old Bassmaster he was a part of, okay? The old Bassmaster that I still love to this day for sure because I grew up going to the classics in Richmond, okay? And meeting the guys I freaking loved, okay, at the tackle shop. Back then when guys would bring their boats, park it outside the tackle shop, and meet people in the parking lot, okay? Why are those days over, Randy?
The whole thing about Ford.
So listen to what Randy has to say if you can listen to this.
The primary driver and the primary stance and opinion of Chase Anderson on this is he related the entire forward-facing sonar topic to viewership and what the view.
Okay, so Randy's projecting that Chase Anderson related the whole forward-facing sonar topic, okay, to viewership. Now, Randy, what I don't understand about Randy Blaukat in reality, and I would love to talk with Randy Blaukat in person one day, just because I don't understand where he says critically of a business person who the generator we all know from Bassmaster and MLF in order to deliver. What are the deliverables? It's clicks, views, just like Randy's channel. It's clicks, impressions, views, sales, whatever. What's the ROI, return on investment, made by all the sponsors in MLF and all the sponsors in Bassmaster to put up the money in order for these events to be scheduled and done all over the country? What is their ROI? We really don't know. What we do know is many companies are here today, gone tomorrow. Okay? Meaning they sponsor for a year or two and then disappear. That should tell you there's not enough ROI. However, there is a lot of ROI for a lot of these companies that are like the technology companies. You've got a lot of consolidation in companies where the big four in bass fishing now own predominantly like the major freaking brands now. Okay. You guys know Praco, Pure Fishing. Okay. You guys know that stuff. Like, it's like they now own multiple brands. You've also got new players. GSM Outdoors has been buying up brands left and right. They become more of a sponsor. Okay. So it's not that the Bassmaster is kowtowing to technology companies. Is somehow beholden to technology companies. And that's why, okay, that forward-facing sonar is not banned completely. completely misses the mark that if Bassmaster banned forward-facing sonar in 2024 or this year in 2025, how much sponsorship dollars will they lose? And if they lose that, if they lose the technology companies, okay, because you got to remember, how many boat companies are sponsoring it now, right? Okay, remember, I mean, they have gone through, if they lost the technology segment of their sponsorship, okay, pie, could Bassmaster stay around? Could they stay afloat? And is it more important to push the forward-facing sonar hoax, like Randy has been doing for years, for his own benefit, not for the benefit of Bassmaster, not for the benefit of Major League Fishing? Okay, if the technology companies today left Bassmaster and left MLF, that would be a large piece of a sponsorship pie lost, and you can bet there would be a consolidation, probably, or a loss of the trail, or any of that. Because as soon as the forward-facing sonar companies drop out of Bassmaster, then the brands that have been capitalizing on the forward-facing sonar movement, you know, hover rigs, okay, hover strolling, minnows, all of that, the jig companies, all of that have been building off of forward-facing sonar, all the brackets that have come along, holding the screens and the, you know, all that stuff that's come along, and the marine companies that have capitalized on that, and the boating market that is capitalizing on these rigs now that have your Livescope set up when you buy your boat. All of these things go away. And basically, you can write the death sentence to professional bass fishing in America. Okay? There's not enough sponsorships. Look at how many non-endemic sponsors there are in bass fishing today. Not many. Okay? Remember when Walmart was a big deal? Right? Okay? It's gone. Like, major corporations that don't have it are not buying into this, that there's an ROI. And the technology companies have had a deliverable, a big ROI, okay, because of the whole forward-facing sonar argument. Like I've said before in multiple videos, virtually everybody I know under the age of 26 to 30 that owns a bass boat in the DMV has forward-facing sonar, okay? Everybody that I know that fishes that's under the legal age of drinking, okay? Every angler that I know that fishes in colleges, that fishes events, that's under the age of 21, okay, that has a boat, all have forward-facing sonar. So what does that tell you? It tells you that there's an evolutionary change in bass fishing that older people like Randy Blaukat are unwilling to accept. And that's fine. But that happens in every single niche of our society. Randy is under the assumption that Bassmaster and MLF is recreational angling. It is not. And it never has been. Okay? When you pay money to enter an event and you are going to receive a payout of $100,000 for winning the event, it's not recreational angling. It's exactly what Chase Anderson said. And I don't agree with a lot of things Chase Anderson does, okay? But at the end of the day, I agree with him on this. It's a business. And the business has to survive first. Because if it's not surviving and sustaining itself and keeping the lights on and paying the bills, then the anglers have no place to fish, okay? And so my argument has always been Randy's fishing the BFLs while he should be fishing the NPFL. And so it's like, you know, a lot of his supporters get on me about he's retired. He's fishing BFLs. Like, I mean, that's not retired, okay? So, like, go fish the NPFL. Like, that is a non-forward-facing sonar event series. Contribute to that event series. Two things I have said can be true at the same time. The NPFL can be successful in its own right for its own demographic, and Bassmaster and MLF can be successful in their own right. The young people are not going to gravitate to the NPFL, okay? They are going to gravitate to the high school fishing Abu Garcia College, and then the MLF or Bassmaster opens into the Bassmaster Elites, okay? That's just what's going to happen. Young people are not going to change. They are not going to go backward, okay? They've got the technology. They like the technology. They want to utilize the technology. So they're going to go to where that technology is acceptable. And as hard as Randy is trying to make it unacceptable, more kids are coming into fishing utilizing that technology. And so we're going to see the pendulum swing, okay? You got to understand that.
Constituents wanted to watch on TV. That was the primary, position that they had regarding their determination on the rule changes with forward-facing sonar.
Okay, so what he's talking about is the number one concern that Bassmaster and MLF, by the way, he's not going to throw MLF under the bus because he's fishing BFLs, okay? That's just the truth. It's all about Bassmaster because he doesn't fish Bassmaster anymore, okay? I mean, at least to my knowledge, he's not. And so it seems like he has targeted Bassmaster a lot more than MLF because he fishes in the BFLs, okay? Just throwing that out there. That the concentration in terms of making the determination about forward-facing sonar has to do with viewership. Well, yeah. Like, I just don't understand the disconnect. I think Randy is still back in 1995. I do. And there were some great things about 1995. Okay? But I just don't think he has evolved. He certainly hasn't evolved as an angler. Okay? He hasn't. All right? Because he has missed one of the biggest technological revolutions in bass fishing there is. And he's refused to adopt it himself. Okay? So he has missed that. Okay? The young people are not. The young people are not missing it. Okay? The young people are on it. All right? And so Bass and MLF, or whichever comes next. Okay? Because I've said this before. If it's not MLF or Bassmaster, someone else is going to do something. Okay? And step up at some point and just be 100% forward-facing sonar. Because there are enough technology companies and boating companies and brands in the fishing space that will go on and support that business model. When you look at the younger generation, the demographics coming up are all using that technology. It's just like a growth story, okay? It's like, okay, how, instead of Randy's position is, let's get away with forward-facing sonar. The business situation in the boardroom, okay, is how do we leverage forward-facing sonar to benefit everybody, okay? That's the disconnect between the business side that Chad Anderson was talking about and the old school mentality of Randy Blaukat, okay? And I'm not saying Randy's wrong about everything. I'm not at all. He has valid points on environmental concerns and fish care concerns, but what Randy never articulates on his channel is most states are already getting out in front of that. Most states are already implementing regulations in terms of fishing during the spawn or not fishing during the spawn, or A-rig, umbrella rig regulations, how many hooks you can have. States are getting ahead of it, okay? Ahead of things, okay? Limiting when tournaments can be scheduled, okay? Some states, I've said this before, Pennsylvania restricts smallmouth fishing in the spring, okay? You're not even allowed to have events, okay? The state doesn't allow permitting for events during that window. So the states are already regulating the things that are going to influence the biology, okay? MLF has gone to catch, weigh, release, okay? More so than anybody else, right? Like they were the, first mover in that regard, okay? Bubba has got the scales out. Bubba's going to have now an online app in the spring of 2026 where you can compete, clubs can compete against people on their local rivers or local lakes, and they can have their events and they'll be hooked up and synced up. And so people don't have to put bass in their live wells at the local clubs anymore. Bubba's getting out in front. Always. This is a capitalistic economy. If there's a need in the economy, businesses will fill it. Okay? And so Randy doesn't understand that side of, I think, what Chase is trying to say. It is about viewership. Because here's the problem. If the viewership drops and goes away, Bass doesn't have any metrics of impressions or views or, tuning in, okay, the Nielsen ratings, or the equivalent of what TV, okay, how many people tuned into the football game on Saturday, how many people tuned into the basketball game on Sunday, like, okay, that's where the advertising revenue comes from. If you don't have that, then you don't have the sponsors, okay? So it is a massive concern for Bassmaster to get its viewership back. Or make a determination that we are going to go in this direction, and then we are going to market to our supporters. We're going to market to the people who like forward-facing sonar and leave all of those others behind if they wish to stay behind. Or if they want to go to the NPFL, let them go to the NPFL and watch that, okay? Those events seem pretty good. The online seems pretty good, but I don't see a lot of marketing. I don't see a lot of sponsorships. I don't see a lot of that like I do with MLF or Bassmaster, okay? And so people got to watch that. Because people don't know if the NPFL is going to be successful or not. They don't, okay? And so it's like a toddler at this point in terms of you got to crawl before you walk, and they staked out their area of what they're going to do. But that's not what Bassmaster or MLF has to do. Like, and that's I guess that's the point where I realized, you know, a while ago that it's really not about the forward-facing sonar aspect. It's about forward-facing sonar has been something that Randy can use to curmudgeon, you know, or rock to beat MLF and Bassmaster against for views and for clicks. Because he already has the NPFL. So instead of embracing the NPFL, instead of fishing the NPFL, instead of being an ambassador for the NPFL, watch his videos and you tell me how many times in the last year Randy Blaukat has talked about the NPFL. Because he's not about supporting non-forward-facing sonar. He's about being the anti-forward-facing sonar authority to beat up Bassmaster and MLF. That's his niche on YouTube. And people have bought into it. He is what I would call, rightly or wrongly, in my opinion, he is nothing more than a forward-facing sonar evangelist. That's all he is. And he perpetuates a hoax. Same way we see in politics. Same way we see everything. Predictable. As soon as I watched that Chase interview, I knew exactly what Randy Blaukat was going to say. And that tells you that it's predictable, okay, in terms of that there needs to be that, okay? And so I just think there's a complete misunderstanding. Everybody out there can chime in and put in the comments, you know, it's not about whether or not you're against forward-facing sonar or for forward-facing sonar anymore, because they've already made their rules for 2026, right? So now the discussion shouldn't be about banning, or that's not the discussion. The discussion should be about, okay, how should it be utilized? Okay, and how should it be leveraged? And how can we embrace where we are today to support Bassmaster and MLF, right? But that's not what they're going to do. Okay?
This is what disappointed me, guys, because he completely missed the point on it. You guys know very well, are very aware of my position on forward-facing sonar. I've been leading the charge against this forever. I've got 100 videos on anti-forward-facing sonar. And the thing that Chase Anderson missed on this that I really wished he would got across was, I don't care about the viewership. I know that he has a business to run. I don't care about, you know,
Randy admits in his video he doesn't care about the fundamental aspects of business that keep Bassmaster afloat. Now, there is an entitlement issue in bass fishing right now. Everybody seems to think that they're entitled to the Bassmaster Opens and they're entitled to have the Bassmaster Elite Series every single year. That's not how it works. Okay? That's not how it works. These things just don't run by themselves without support and sponsorship dollars and engagement and impressions and views. Okay? If the views plummet, and Randy is saying he doesn't care about the views, then there's nothing going to happen on Fox, okay? There's nothing going to happen on any TV network, any outdoor network, anything like that, because they survive with views and impressions, okay? And so they're not going to sign contracts with Bassmaster or MLF. It's all going to have to be online themselves on their own networks or their own, which is why I always said they should do a subscription-based plan. But, again, it falls on deaf ears, and that's okay. I've been there before. But for Randy to say he doesn't care about the views and that Chase, who's in the driver's seat, sees the books, sees the financials, sees the things. This is why, guys, and people ask us all the time about the schedule. This is why the schedules are what they are. It's because they're not growing, okay? They're just sustaining. And they've got the relationships right now in place for the next 3 years that they have in place, okay? And so they're not going to deviate from those core state locations that are going to support them financially at the local level for them to bring events to augment a lot of the expenses. That's why they're not going to new places. Now MLF is gone, and Bassmaster's are going to try because now they see what MLF did, going to some new places, and that's kind of like great events, and it's kind of created a lot of views and stuff like that. Chase got into that and talked about the difference in viewership between this forward-facing sonar event and this forward-facing sonar event. A lot of that has nothing to do with forward-facing sonar, guys. A lot of it has to do with regional acceptance of fisheries. We all understand. We all tune into the Texas fisheries. That's why Bassmaster goes there and had been going there repeatedly over and over and over again, because they know we're going to tune into Lake Fork. They know we're going to tune into San Rayburn. They know we're going to tune into Toledo Bend because biggins are going to get caught. They know we're going to tune into Florida, okay? Now, when they go other places, viewership may dip if they go into North Carolina, okay? It might. Or if they go to up in Tennessee, other than Gunnersville and on the Tennessee River and places like that. But if they go to other places, we see what happens when they're on Grand Lake, okay? They go back, but we see what happens because they got a deal. They got a deal there, okay? And so that's that. So that's a part of what Randy doesn't seem to understand, that Bass isn't in this hyperbolic growth phase. They're in the maintaining and sustaining phase. Okay? And they can't afford to lose, big sponsors like the technology side. And so, is it a business? We watch freaking football, right? All weekend long, right? And what's one of the most cliche statements we ever hear during a football game is, that guy made a business decision, right? The player made a business decision by not going in and trying to freaking tackle Travis Henry, right? He made a business decision. Well, that's what Chad and that's what Boyd have to do. This is not all just about fishing, okay? It is about the business. It is about how do we keep the lights on and the doors open, okay? And they've thrown darts at a board. They tried the no pay, the no entry fee model, okay? And we know what happened, all right? Why did it not work? Because they didn't have the underlying sponsorship support. And Randy is out advocating for just voluntarily eliminating probably 20%. I think it's about 20% of the dollars come from technology and boating technology and marine companies, with forward-facing sonar brackets and mounts and all that. Okay? 20%. I mean, what does he expect to happen? And so, even when they try to appease people, which I don't think they should do, and limit it, they get criticized, right? Even though we try to meet people halfway, they get criticized and they get jumped on. Randy hasn't shown any support for the rules changes or any modifications. He is an absolutist, okay? He is what I would call very similar, in my opinion, to the people that I know where I live, in this town, in the DMV, on the progressive left. They are not uncompromising absolutists. That's what they are. They don't want to get shit done. They don't want to like move the ball forward and grow. They want it the way they want it, and that's it. And this proves it. This video right now he has up on his YouTube channel proves it. Because he's ripping the guy to shreds who is the person in the business seat, having to mitigate all of this for the benefit of the anglers. I mean, he hasn't reduced the size of his field like MLF is doing, okay? Maybe that's coming. Maybe it's inevitable that in order to address expenses and in order to address things, that they begin to reduce their field to 55 or 65 anglers, okay? Maybe that's what happens, okay? But those are business decisions, okay? Anderson Media is a business, okay? They have people they have to answer to, all right? Okay, independent of what's going on the water and the events, okay? You know, and I just think Randy totally misses that whole point. And the arguments are just starting to like get thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And it's just really tough. I wonder what really is the end game for Randy Blaukat. Bassmaster folding up shop? Bassmaster and MLF merging? Well, if Bassmaster and MLF merge, are they going to have forward-facing sonar? I think they should. MPFL doesn't have it, so why not have one that has it and let the chips fall where they may? Let the anglers decide for themselves where they want to go. The older people, like Randy Blaukat, that are still around, okay, that are still around freaking Bass.
The numbers he's getting on certain.
That are still around in Bass, all right, maybe they go to MPFL. And God bless them. If they don't want to freaking compete in a forward-facing sonar environment, they should go to NPFL. Remember, people decided whether or not they were going to go from FLW when MLF came around, decided if they were going to go to MLF or go to Bass. Leave Bass and go to MLF. We're right back. We can be right back where we are, okay, where we were back then. Anglers can decide which they want to do. And if everybody my age, you know, I'm in my 50s, and Randy's older than I am, if all the people our age want to go to the MPFL, great. And if all the 20-somethings want to come in and dominate Bassmaster Elite Series, great. That's the future. Okay? Randy and I and everybody in their 50s and 60s, we're not the future of Bass. We're not. Okay? Our kids are. And our grandkids are. They're the future. And they may want something different from Bassmaster than what we wanted. And that's perfectly okay. It's perfectly acceptable. Businesses have to evolve and change. They have to survive. Okay? This is not 1995 anymore. Okay? It's not. So it just doesn't do anybody any good to always approach it from the perspective of eliminate it only. Absolutism. It just doesn't work. Okay? Because the sales are there. It's showing the hundreds of thousands of people, the units that are selling, that sometimes you can't get because they're selling so fast. That tells you where the market's going. And what I mean by that is the market for the 18 to 35-year-old is not the same market as the 35 to 70. Okay? And so at the end of the day, the 35 to 70 market is closer to hanging up their rods, okay, than that 18 to 35 are. And they're the future. And we need to absolutely bring them in and ask them what they want. Okay? What do they want? All the other professional sports have evolved. They've all made changes in the last 20 years. And so, you know what I mean? You want people to watch. You want people to show up. You want people to enter events. These are the things that like consistency. You want to be consistent. Transparency and consistency with anglers so they know what's up, okay? And not be changing these things every single freaking year, okay? That's got to be the most frustrating thing for anglers that I've talked to. Is it every year it changes? I mean, do we really want anglers to have to think about where they're going to be fishing the next year every single year? Because that's where we're at. Okay? And so I think we just need to get out ahead, and understand that this is what we need to do, in terms of letting anglers decide. Let anglers pick the events. They can have 5 events that they can use forward-facing sonar in all season long, and let them pick the events. Don't try to top down it, okay? These are smart guys, okay, from the fishing mindset. These guys know, okay? And so I just think they should have the ability to do that. They should have the ability to go out there. And this notion that, that's no longer fishing anymore because guys don't have to fish to find fish. Well, I mean, I'm 50, but everybody that I grew up with had sonar. Everybody, had all kinds of stuff. Like, had electronics. I mean, I don't know where that's coming from. Like, everybody that I knew had some form of electronics, okay, on their boats. Depth finders, side. I mean, so, again, the technology is the technology. It's always going to evolve, okay? We can't deny it. The same people trying to deny AI is going to happen. It's going to happen, folks. You're not going to get out in front. You're not going to halt technology, okay? It's about innovation. It's about the next generation and the next generation. That's what it's about, okay? And so we can't get caught in the 90s, and we want to make tournaments the 90s. But if you go back to the 90s, there were people complaining back then. Complaining in bass fishing is not new, okay? People have always had gripes about different things. And so I just, again, not surprised by Randy Blaukat's take on any of it. I just think that it's about views and it's about clicks. And so, and a lot of people are gullible, just like people are gullible with evangelicals. The evangelical folks, on television, the televangelists are getting you to, are basically fleecing you for your money. Okay? Like, I'm just saying, it's kind of the same deal. Like, it's just like, I just would think someone is adamant against forward-facing sonar. If he was genuine and sincere about it, he'd set the example and fish the NPFL and be an ambassador for that and spend his time positively elevating NPFL for that demographic than staying over here and trying to tear down MLF and B.A.S.S for allowing forward-facing sonar. I mean, but we all know, man, what sells right now? Negativity sells. Drama sells. Conflict sells. Kumbaya doesn't sell. Okay? And in my opinion, that's why we are where we are today. All right, guys. Check out the video on Bass Talk Live. Let me know what you think about Chad Anderson's interview with Bass Talk Live in the direction of B.A.S.S. Let me know what you think. If I'm wrong, let me know I'm wrong. I'm cool with that. I just think we need to get to this off season, man. We really need to get to a better place as we start next year. Instead of having another continuation of 2024 like we did in 2025, it's not beneficial. It's not beneficial to any of the trails, in my opinion. All right, guys.